everyone. Today we are back with some sci-fi. It is book 2 in the Dark Stars trilogy. It's called A Light in the Dark by A.K. DuBoff. And when we last left our heroes, they had managed to seal the Master Archive, so they have that great win going for them. But since then, they've kind of been twiddling their thumbs. They're not quite sure what to do next. They just know they have to fight against the darkness. So Elle, being our proactive heroine, has asked to go to the very first world that was infected to look for clues. So they head on down to a planet completely engulfed by the darkness. It's been that way for months, and they're going to see what they can see. They've made it to the planet, and they're trying to land, and things don't quite go the way they expect them to. So without further ado, we're just going to pick right up there with Chapter 3 of A Light in the Dark. All right, here we go. Chapter 3. I swallowed hard. We can't be trapped. Well, the shuttle isn't responding. No, more concern. The shuttle's not responding. We have to be more concerned than that. Maybe my mouse will work so I can punch in. There we go. Well, the shuttle isn't responding. Concern pitched Caden's voice while he continued trying to direct the craft upward. Despite throttling the engine, the vessel continued to descend deeper into the black chasm. "What's pulling us down?" I asked, panic setting in. "I don't know." Caden's hands raced over the controls. Maris's face strained. "Is it like a gravity well or something?" "I don't think it works like that," I muttered in reply.
"The sensors aren't picking up anything in our surroundings to indicate we're trapped in such an anomaly. This shuttle's engines are strong enough to break orbit, so there's no reason we'd be unable to pull away now," Torin explained. "Unless we've been tethered," Caden said. My heart skipped a beat. "By what?" "I don't know. Pardon." "I don't know, but see if you can identify anything." Caden continued fighting with the controls. The shuttle swayed side to side, but it was unable to gain any elevation. I used the console in front of me to bring up detailed sensor data around the shuttle, including pressure points on the hull that may indicate a grapple. The aft frame of the vessel did appear to be stressed, though I couldn't make out a singular point where an anchor might be tethered. "Does this thing have a rear-view camera?" "Not for close-range observation," Caden replied. "Then we'll need to get a look the old-fashioned way." I unbuckled my harness. His eyes widened. "Where are you going?" "To look out the rear airlock," I replied, bracing myself on my seat back. You can't brace on a setback. That's silly. There we are. But where is that sentence? Right there. Sorry, lost my space. "Airlock," I replied, bracing myself on my seat back as the shuttle rocked. "Hold it steady." "Oh, don't! I convinced all of you to come down here, so I better figure out what's preventing us from going home." I jogged toward the common area with my arms outstretched to either side to catch myself as the shuttle bucked. My heart pounded in my ears. It was my fault we were in this mess. I couldn't let anything bad happen to my friends, especially not before we had a chance to accomplish our mission. I passed by our packs and the 4 has-suits on my way to the aft airlock. I didn't want to say the word aft at all. Oh. There's my Labrador. Hang on. Okay, he's settled down now, so we are back. Let's see. It's our mission. I passed by our packs and the 4 has-suits on my way to the aft airlock beyond the sleeping cabins. If things took a turn for the worse, those suits might be the only thing standing between us and the unstable environment. Not that I had a lot of faith in that thin material. Oops. Faith in. We're not having faith in the thin material. We're having faith that the thin material does something. Oh, I need to put that on Do Not Disturb. Boop. Okay. Environment. And I lost my place again. There we go. Stable environment. Not that I had a lot of faith that the thin material would last long against the corrosive properties of the darkness. At the end of the corridor running the length of the shuttle, the airlock entry door was sealed. I checked the panel to confirm it was pressurized and then opened it. The outside hatch had a 1-meter-wide square viewport at its center, and I pressed my face against the thick plastic to see if I could spot what... Oh, I did not have enough air. Pressing my face against the thick plastic. Press my face right there. Viewport at its center, and I pressed my face against the thick plastic to see if I could spot what... And Toby's going again. Jeezy crazy. Okay, and we're back again. Viewport at its center, and I pressed my face against the thick plastic to see if I could spot whatever seemed to be tethering us inside the chasm. To my horror, a thick, vine-like structure appeared to be wrapping itself around the shuttle. The vines thickened toward the base, though I couldn't make out the anchor point through the blackness. "Hey, guys, there's a bad thing going on back here," I shouted toward the bridge. "What do you see?" Caden shouted back. "Black vines or something," I replied. A moment later, I heard the heavy thud of footsteps, and Torin came into view down the corridor. Everybody's got to rev their engine. Right there. Torin came into view down the corridor. He squeezed into the airlock next to me, motioning me aside so he could look outside. "Stars!" he exclaimed. "What is that?" "Certain death, if I'm not being overly dramatic." He frowned. "This is a little too on point to be a joke." I looked down, all too aware of my predisposition for ill-timed humor. "We need to detach it," I said to get us back in the right headspace. "I have no idea what to suggest, given that we don't know what that is." "Cut it?" I suggested. "With what? We need to use a laser cutter from a completely different angle." "To cut the tendrils from the base, yeah. Not the right emphasis. To cut the tendrils from the base, yeah. But what about shearing them off from where they're... That was right. To cut the tendrils from the base, yeah. But what about shearing them off from where they're attached to the shuttle? He examined me. "What do you have in mind?" "What if we make it impossible for the vine things to grip the hull?" "Like an electrified fence?" "Yeah, along those lines." "That general idea could work if we had time to play around with it, but it's too risky to try as a one-shot." "What else, then?" I asked. Before Torin could reply, Caden shouted again from the bridge. "What's going on back there?" "Trying to figure out how to sever the evil alien vine things?" I shouted back. I returned my attention to Torin. "If we can't science this thing on short notice, then it'll come down to magic." He nodded. "But how?" I shrugged. "Giant fireball?" "Sounds like a job for Caden." "It does, but he's flying." I braced myself as the shuttle rocked. "Do you know enough from your engineering classes to take over for a few minutes?" Torin scowled. "Not really, but I suspect we may not have another option. There were two more possibilities. Either Maris could try offensive magic, or I could. But neither one of us had Caden's degree of control. Given the surgical nature of the task at hand, I decided against voicing the alternatives. Take over in the bridge and get him back here. I'll get a suit already. Not already, just ready. Hey, Mouse, let's cooperate. Oh my goodness. Right there. Take over in the bridge and get him back here. I'll get a suit ready. The large man nodded, then took off toward the bridge. I followed him as far as the common room, where I started putting on one of the Has suits and unfurled another so it would be easy for Caden to don. He appeared in the common room just as I'd secured my suit up to my hips. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Getting ready." He warily examined the suit. "For what?" "You use a fireball or lightning, and I slash and make sure the vine things don't snatch you. Easy." Caden picked up the prepped suit and frowned. "And where are we going to do this from?" "The back airlock," I replied. "Oh, that's crazy." The shuttle rocked again, knocking me into the dining table. I caught myself and used my hands to steady myself under the ship's internal... Until, not under. Oh, goodness. There we are. I caught myself. Into the dining table. I caught myself and used my hands to steady myself until the ship's internal stabilizers compensated. Sounds like a better plan than waiting until the tendrils either pull us all the way to the bottom of the chasm or we run out of fuel. He started dressing. Point taken. I slipped my arms into my Has-suit sleeves. Gotta say, this isn't what I had in mind when I suggested we come down here. Really? Because I figured we'd be screwed. Oh, I did too, but I was thinking more like tar pits or shadow beasts, not giant tentacle. I thought there was going to be a third item. Oh, I didn't... But I was thinking more like tar pits or shadow beasts, not giant tentacle monsters. Wait, you said vines. Yes, but I have no idea what they're attached to. I thought maybe it would sound better to say we were being attacked by a giant monster rather than being eaten by a demon plant. Caden stared at me with disbelief. How would that be any better? Now that I say it out loud... Never mind. He slipped the Has-suit helmet over his head and then grabbed his magic staff. Let's try to get free. I finished securing my own helmet, grabbed my sword, and then quickly followed Caden into the aft airlock. We sealed the interior door and then pressurized the compartment to the outside. When the indicator light turned green, Caden released the rear hatch. The roar of the shuttle's engine filled the chamber, and a gust of wind knocked me backward. I gripped one of the handholds near the hatch opening with my right hand and readied my sword in my left. The black vines made no motion in our direction. Caden's mouth fell open as he took in the sight of the alien tendrils writhing around our vessel. "Blast 'em!" I urged. "Those things could take us out in a second." "That's why we need to get to them fast." Oh, first. Boo. Boo on KJ. That's why we need to get to them first. He shook his head. No way I can blast them in one go. Do your best. I'm here in case they try to counterattack. We need to try. Caden looked far from convinced, but he nodded. With one hand gripping the wall inside the airlock, he directed his staff toward the most concentrated bundle of black vines. A flaming blue orb formed on the end of his staff. When it had swelled to twice the size of Caden's head, he released the fireball into the blackness. The orb struck its mark and exploded in a flash, scattering smaller blue flames throughout the vines. In each place touched by the flames, the vines spasmed. But no tendrils appeared to have been severed, and none released from the ship. "Try again," I said. Caden cast another fireball, even larger this time. But it was just as ineffective. "We need to try something else." "Yeah, you're right." Without hesitation, I locked in my grip on the handhold and then swung my body outward behind the shuttle. Following with the momentum, I slashed with my sword arm toward the nearest vines affixed to the hull. My blade sliced through the vines, and the severed segments fell away into the blackness below. The ruined ends of the vines, however, lashed out toward me. I swung back into the comparative safety of the airlock just in time to avoid one of the vines whipping toward my sword arm. Caden quickly hurled a fireball toward the vines, and they recoiled. "Thanks." I smiled at him before taking a cautious look out the open hatch. The ends of the vines were reforming into points where I had sliced them off. Needs a little more power behind it. More oomph. The ends. The open hatch. The ends of the vines were reforming into points where I had sliced them off. Stars, these things don't quit! Shit, we never should have. We'll never should have? That's what people say, right? Shit, we never should have come down here. No more indulging your crazy ideas. Hey, I wouldn't have suggested it if I expected this. I slashed at the vines as they stabbed toward us, slicing them off again. Any other ideas for how to get us out? Fear filled Caden's eyes. We'd faced some terrifying things in our brief time together, but we'd always at least things in our brief time together, but we'd always at least had solid ground underfoot. To have our one means of escaping the planet now grappled by the alien force placed us in a totally new kind of danger. I didn't want this to be the end. We needed to find a way back to safety. My blade works against them, I said, trying to suppress my own fear and doubt. I just need better reach. Caden's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I need a way to get out there and cut that big one. The shuttle might be able to break free of the others. No. He shook his head. No way. You couldn't hold on through that. I won't have to if I'm tied down. But the engines. Shut them down. I swing out, do my thing. Dang it. There we go. Shut them down. Shut them down. That's a comma. That's not a period. That's a comma. Shut them down. I swing out and do my thing, then use the EVA winch to pull me back in, and Torin punches it. Oh, there's no time to argue. Caden swallowed, then activated the suit's comm since he couldn't touch the integrated comm behind his ear. Maris, get to the interior airlock door. We need you to cast a protective shell. See? I said. I'll be in a safe, happy bubble. Despite my attempts to make light of the situation, the notion of swinging out behind the shuttle terrified me. But what scared me more was being drawn down into the blackness where the tendrils were coming from. What the? Maris's voice filled my helmet as she stared out the interior airlock viewport at the scene. Elle has gone mad, Caden stated. But her plan might be the only thing that can save us right now. I grabbed the end of the winch tethered outside the airlock and secured the control belt around my waist. A shield would be great. Maris gaped at me for a second, then nodded. She waved her hand, and a translucent purple shell appeared around me.
Be careful.
Yeah, that runs contrary to this entire maneuver. I altered the suit's comm to include the whole team. Torin, I'm going to need you to cut the engines on my mark.
But that will...
He started to object. I need to sever these vines, and I'd rather not be incinerated in the process. I cut in. A new wave of shaking snaking vines. The ship is shaking. The vines are snaking. A new wave of snaking vines were rising from the depths. They'd reach the shuttle within 20 seconds, and then my swordsmanship might not be enough. I prepared to leap from the door. Caden, follow with fireballs behind me so the severed ends can't grab hold while I swing. You don't have to. I looked him in the eyes. This is our only move. I shifted my gaze down to the approaching vines. Ready, Torin?
Standing by.
Cut the engines! The roars. That was a huge click. Ugh. Let's take that out, because that's just gross. No one wants to hear that. The roar ceased. In the sudden silence, I dove from the hatch into a free fall toward the black depths. 10 meters out, I hit the winch's brake using the control belt. The cable went taut, causing me to swing in an arc toward the bundle of tendrils. I slashed through as many as I could reach with my sword as I swung by. The slicing resistance of the blade slowed my trajectory, and by the time I reached the thickest of the strands, I was only able to cut halfway through. I could only hope it would be enough. Caden's fireballs blasted behind me, and the shuttle was losing elevation without its engines firing. There was no way I could try for another pass. I hit the winch controls to reel me in at maximum speed. Despite the short distance I had to go, the shuttle was falling too fast, and I wouldn't be able to make it back inside before the craft would be snared by the tendrils once more. Go now! I shouted to Torin. Maris's shield had withheld There we are. I shouted to Torin. Maris's shield had withheld fire breathed from a dragon at close range, so hopefully it would protect me from the engine's wash. Wait! Caden shouted, but Torin had already activated the thrusters. The waist belt dug into me as the shuttle pulled away from the remaining black vines, breaking free when I was still 3 meters out as the winch reeled me in. Heat from the engines hit me like I'd stepped into an oven, despite the shield and the protective layer from the has-suit. Fortunately, the winch was positioned far enough from the engines that the cable wasn't in the direct path of the exhaust, and the mechanism was able to reel me in the rest of the way. Gripping a handhold inside the doorframe, Caden extended his free hand to help me inside. That was some move, he said as his hand wrapped securely around my wrist. I grinned up at him while I scrambled inside. I swear I wasn't trying to show off. Nice work and all, but we have other problems, Maris said over the comm. I looked up at her, still staring through the viewport, pointing behind us. Looking over my shoulder, my stomach dropped as I saw the walls of the chasm closing in. And that is Chapter 3 of A Light in the Dark from the Dark Stars trilogy, Book 2. If you want to see what happens to our heroes, check out the book in a few weeks when it releases. Thanks for joining us today. See you next time.